ladies and gentlemen, Nick here, and welcome to my review of Doctor Who Planet of the Daleks, the penultimate story in Doctor Who Season 10. And I have to say, my opinion on this story has gone down a bit. I just didn't enjoy it as much as I used to. I still think it's a great story, but I wouldn't give it the 9 out of 10 score I was originally going to give it. I thought that would be what I would give it. That's what I previously gave it, but I don't think it would work. That would work anymore. I think it's more likely to be an 8. Confirmation later. But I would still put it, still consider it the better of the two Dalek War stories, the two stories in the Dalek War DVD box set, with the other one being Frontier in Space. So, but I think the story has gone down, and ultimately it's dropped from first place in my Season 10 ranking to probably about 3rd, maybe 4th, depending on how my opinion on the Green Death is after the rewatch. But at the moment it's 3rd. You'll see it on the ranking when it comes around. Probably 3rd or 4th. Depends on how Green Death goes. I won't tell you what my new favourite story is of the season at the moment, but you can probably tell if you've watched the previous 3 reviews. So, Planet of the Daleks. The problem is that it's actually a pretty slow story. It's got quite a few dull moments, especially Part 1. Part 1 is very slow and doesn't have much going for it. Not that it's bad, it's just that it's slow and just takes its time with a lot of things. And I dare say that the ending is also a little bit rushed, or just things go on a bit quickly. I can understand what they're doing, but I can't quite follow it. So, it seems to be a thing with classic stories. They would build a lot of their stories, especially the 6-parters. They would build up a lot, and then they'd quickly finish it. Not necessarily rush the ending, but they would still quickly finish it. So, I don't know. I think they just love their build-up. That's all. And that's what I got with this one. Planet of the Daleks Part 1 doesn't really add much, apart from just, the first couple of minutes, just wrapping up where we were in Frontier in Space and travelling to Spiridon, and Joe going out to investigate, and then the Doctor waking up and finding the files. I mean, he does spend a couple of minutes in the TARDIS, but I suppose that's full episode time. The cliffhanger is to say there's the Daleks on this planet. Even though after Frontier in Space we knew that's what we were supposed to be doing, and the title's in the name Daleks in the title. So it wouldn't have been that big of a twist. And then the second episode, there isn't a huge amount of stuff going on. But we do start getting a bit of a story progression around that point. I also have to say there is a lack of female characters in this story. There's one File woman and Joe, and that's about it. So what is it with classic stories when they have these ensemble casts, when they have all these people that the Doctor and Joe meet? There's usually Earth Science Expedition groups, there's one token female character, not including the companion, if the companions are female, or companions. So, yeah, that's just, I didn't quite understand that. There seems to be one token female character certainly in this story and in Death to the Daleks, which we'll look at next time, and in Genesis of the Daleks as well. There's only one female character in those Dalek stories. That isn't the companion. Death to the Dalek, Day of the Daleks only had those bored-looking women on the panels and the secretary and the workers. Write some more female main characters. Look at Malcolm Hulke, he wrote the Presidents as a woman in the last story. I know this is starting to sound like a bit of a feminist position, but I just find it strange that they would only have one token female character in this. It's the same with black people in some cases. Look at the mutants. But what the story does well is the Dalek stuff. I have to say the Daleks are really good in the story. And, you know, the last time we had a problem with the voices in Frontier in Space, they were, Michael Wisher was just, it didn't work. I don't know what happens there. Why did he sound like that? Was the voice modulator not working? Or was he just not putting any effort into it? I'm glad to say that he does put effort into these voices, and he does have better vocal modulation, and Roy Skelton returns as well, I think he's done. Yeah, I think he's done the Daleks before. If not, then this is his first time, and you can tell which ones he is and which ones which are not as much as you can. Which one's him and which Skeleton and which one's David Goodison in Destiny of the Daleks. Those ones are very easy to distinguish. This time round, it's not so much. But I think Skeleton easily does the best Dalek voices, and I think he will go on to do Dalek voices. Maybe not in Death to the Daleks, but he'll certainly do them from Genesis up to Remembrance. And he will be the defining Dalek voice of certainly the 70s and 80s, if Peter Hawkins is the 60s one, and Nicholas Briggs of the 21st century. So having Skeleton on board is more than makes up for what we've had with the past 2 Dalek stories. He manages to create some great Dalek voices, and I would also say Wisher has improved since the last 8 minutes of the previous story. the 8 minutes of the end of the last story. And speaking of which, the Dalek Supreme at the end, he appears in the last 20 minutes, not the last 8 to 18 like I thought it had, but the last 21 minutes of the story. So that's good, and he has some great stuff to do. I mean, not not a huge amount to do, but he does have some good moments, and he gets to exterminate one of the failing Daleks. And fun fact, he's a Dalek from one of the Doctor Who Dalek movies with Peter Cushing, and they borrowed it from Terry Nation, who is back writing these stories, and they just adapted him to the Dalek to make him look like a Supreme Council Dalek. They even gave him jam jars for lights, and probably the biggest lights in the show. I mean, maybe the Paradigm ones have exceeded that. I'm not sure, but the Dalek looks cool, and it would be nice to see him back in a future story. He's in a Big Finish Audio, the Genesis machine, but that's about it, I think. Maybe some comics. On screen, he's definitely only been in this one story. What, you can't bring this Dalek prop out to... Actually, maybe you can't. Maybe it belongs to Terry Nation. I was going to say bring it out for Asylum of the Daleks or Magician's Apprentice, but maybe it belongs to Terry Nation. Or rather, the Terry Nation estate now. I do have to say one thing about the Daleks. There's supposed to be only 12 of them on the planet, but every time we see them, there seems to be more than 12. At least before the the Dalek Supreme or Supreme Council Dalek arrives, there's supposedly 12. They disable one of them, so there should be 11 now. 2 are blown up, and that should leave 9. I think we saw 8 in one scene. Just seems that they're everywhere, though. I mean, I think that's supposed to be the point, but these 12 Daleks are everywhere. But, you know what, that's not too much of a problem. And the files are in this story, and they've come to stop the Daleks. I suppose the Doctor and Jo needed some support in trying to stop the Daleks and their army. And whilst it at first seems like the Daleks are just trying to master invisibility, it turns out that the entire Dalek army is a huge army is hidden beneath the planet in the ice volcano, where they could be in suspended animation. And that would help them as part of their conquest, which would have followed on from the war in Frontier in Space. And even without that war, they could probably still take over the universe. And with the army frozen, that's when they're defeated, and they can't do that. So, yeah, that's about it for the story. There isn't a huge amount to talk about. The characters are all pretty good, although there is this one point where one of the files threatens to kill his leader if they don't storm the building, and then that's when the other lot of files come along. There's this other file who basically commits suicide by he's trying to help his friends, but he is killed in the process. Can't hold back Daleks, mate. And he's the one carrying the map to the bombs, which the Daleks find. However, Jo is able to stop 2 of the 3 bombs from blowing up before the other one does, although she does get knocked out for a bit. But she's able to wake up and escape with 2 of the bombs before the other one blows up. But then the other guy who threatened to kill the leader, he then takes one of the bombs and tries to blow up the entrance, but he's exterminated at one point. and so the leader and one of the other files have to steal the bombs back and use them to just help stop the Daleks, I suppose. Also, good colour restoration on episode 3, by the way. Colour restoration people guy. That was 10 years ago, and they've done a pretty good job. It's probably the most successful colour restoration of the lot, probably. We'll see how Invasion of the Dinosaurs Part 1 goes. But anyway, so Plans of the Daleks. It's got some good stuff. Oh yeah, there's a really good character called Wesper. He's a Spiridon, played by Roy Skelton, and he does a good job as well. And Skelton also does some good Spiridon voices as well, as we get some other Spiridons there to hear. So anyway, Plans for the Daleks, good story, has some good moments, but it does take its time to get into it. It is a bit slow. It does have some slow moments. I can see people getting bored and turning off after one episode, after 2 episodes maybe. But if you manage to go up to episodes 5 or episode 6, then you're in for a good time. Maybe not a hugely fun time like Three Doctors or Carnival Monsters, but you will still get a really good story that, on the same levels as Frontier and Space's last 2 episodes, possibly, no, better than those last 2 episodes. And I think the majority of this story, it's still a really good story. And, fun fact, this story has similarities to the Vietnam War. Another thing that was taking place at the time, although in the documentary they compared the Daleks to the Americans and the files to the North Vietnamese, I suppose in that war you can debate, in the actual Vietnamese war you can debate who's the good guys and the bad guys. In this story you can definitely tell the Daleks are bad guys, and they're with the Spiridons, and they're forcing the Spiridons to work with them, and the files are trying to stop them. In the case of the Vietnamese War, the North Vietnamese attacked the South Vietnamese first, and the Americans went in and tried to defend them because they didn't want any communists spreading, because they were afraid of communism at the time. And then they started attacking They went into North Vietnam, but also into other nearby countries. So around that time, you could probably argue both are pretty much as villainous as each other, especially as the Americans would do some really nasty things to villagers in both Vietnam countries. That being said, North Vietnamese also had some really nasty ways of killing the American soldiers, and some really nasty traps, and also had some guerrillas running around doing some stuff. So either way, both sides were probably neither of them would be heroes. No way. You could say both sides were villains to each other and everyone they were around. So in the Vietnamese case, nobody wins. Well, the North Vietnamese did win the war, but they won't be considered heroes in the public's eye. No, well, I don't consider them heroes. I don't consider the Americans heroes, but I wouldn't consider the North Vietnamese heroes either. In this story, however, it is pretty clear who the baddies are and who the goodies are. They're the baddies. We're the goodies. So, yeah, that's comparisons. But unlike Frontier and Space, where it was very much 2 very strong powers, and very much representing the US and Russia at the time, and probably very equal in their representation. This time round, I think the Daleks are supposed to be the Americans in this story because of their technological power, and the unadvanced or less advanced files are the North Vietnamese. So that's the comparison in this story, but I would not say either country are Daleks. I mean, they might act like Daleks in some places, but they would not actually be Daleks. I think they're both files, but do some Dalek-y stuff in some places. But we're getting political, so we'll stop now. But story-wise, Plans for the Daleks is a very good story. It's just that you might get you just might get a bit tired of it and a bit early on, and it might turn you off. But if you can get through to the end, you've got a pretty good story. No, you've got a very good story. So I'm going to give Planet of the Daleks an 8 out of 10. Lowered it to an 8 because I found it a bit slightly duller in the earlier episodes, but I liked the story and it was a pretty good following couple of episodes and had some good stuff and went really well. And also a lot of people have been comparing this one to the Terry Nation, the first Terry Nation Dalek story, the Daleks. And yeah, there is a lot of similarities in this story to the Daleks, quite a few. Like the Dalek, like running around all those corridors, being trapped in the cell, going up and down the lift, the cutting door Dalek, the jungle in a way. He's trying to get out to the top, and there's a Dalek flying up after him, and like in a lift shaft. It's got a couple of similarities to the Daleks, but you know what? I think it's it's like Star Wars: The Force Awakens, Star Wars Episode 7. Is basically how it's doing some similar stuff to Episode 4, A New Hope, and how it's basically doing that again, doing stuff slightly differently before it can then go on to do other stuff in the franchise, and that's the same with Terry Nation Dalek stories in the 70s. Because he hasn't done a Dalek story since 1965, 66, 65, so nearly 8 years. He may have had some input on Power and Evil, and he did write The Destroyers, the unmade Dalek series pilots that would become a Big Finish audio, but he hasn't written a Doctor Who Dalek story since 1965, and I suppose The Destroyers was 67, so 6 to 8 years of not writing a Dalek story. So he's taken some inspiration from his first Dalek story, which would have been about, this is April to May, they're 73, so it would be 10 that December, 10 years old that December, January 74, and 1st of February in 74 as well. So he's taking his inspiration from a nearly 10-year-old story, first story, and he's reusing some of those elements into a new story before he can go on to do even more new things with Death to the Daleks, Genesis of the Daleks, and Destiny of the Daleks. So, yeah, and to be honest, I honestly think the stuff that's done in the Daleks is, I think, well, if this is supposed to be a Dalek remake, the Daleks remake, I think it's a slightly better version. At least I think, yeah, I would prefer this one. Similar, I think would I prefer The Force Awakens over A New Hope? I'm not sure, I have to rewatch these two films. But certainly with this one, I prefer it to the Daleks. I know that may sound like sacrilege, but tough. It's my opinion. I didn't even used to enjoy the first one that much before rewatching it not too long ago. So anyway, that's it from me. Thank you for watching. Next time we'll be looking at Joe's final story, The Green Death, and the final story of season 10, and that will end John Pertwee's penultimate season before we get started on season 11 with The Time Warrior, which will be the start of his final season, as well as Sarah Jane's first story and the first story to feature the Sontarans. Ooh, it's looking up, So anyway, after Green Death, we'll have a season 10 ranking, and then we'll move on to season 11. I also want to point out, I want to try and record these videos before the 19th of April, because I'm going away. That's Good Friday, because that's when I'm going away. I'm going away for a few days, and then we'll be coming back. So I think I'll certainly try and film up to Planet of the Spiders review for that one. I'll definitely watch all the stories up to Planet of the Spiders for. By then, I'll probably record them all. Maybe the John Pert and the season 10 and 11 rankings, and probably the John Pertwee story rank, Third Doctor's Best Stories ranking, possibly. We'll see. Editing wise, it might be a bit different, and that they're all of the season 11 stuff are coming out from Easter onwards. So these reviews will be finishing up, few days break, and then after the season 10 ranking, and then season 11 will be reviews will be starting Easter Sunday. So anyway, thank you for watching, and I'll see you guys next time. Goodbye. Don't forget to click below to subscribe to the official Nicholas Payne Retro YouTube channel. Hear me? Anyway, so yes, so I was having and there was a point I was going to go back to after talking about the Supreme Dalek. So many bloopers. Oh yeah, that was it. So I'm going to give Planet of the Daleks an 8 out of 10. Yeah, I've lowered it to an 8 because